For decades, outside sales has been built on a simple formula. To me, it was get in the car, visit customers, build relationships, and grow business face to face.
Mhm.
That model helped generations of distributors and manufacturers expand their markets and strengthen customer loyalty. But in recent years, the landscape of B2B selling has changed dramatically. Some might look at outside salespeople as obsolete, but is that the right view to have? Well, let's find out. Today, our regular guest, Dave Kell, has some information for us. Dave, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Jeff. It's always a pleasure.
Tell us, here's an easy question. Are salespeople obsolete these days?
The answer is honestly, probably, probably. But it's of course it's more nuanced and bigger than we can put into one word. For honestly, for 20 years in my seminars, I've been introducing a seminar by saying with some detail that times are changing at a pace that's unprecedented in human existence. Never been a time when things are changing as rapidly as they are now. And I've often said, if you think things have changed rapidly for you in the last year or so, hang on. You see nothing yet. And of course, we're at an age where the whole specter of AI is transforming lots of things. And in addition to all the other stuff, we now have AI kind of sticking its nose into the world of the outside salesperson. And are they obsolete? Some of them are, some of them will be. Absolutely. Not all of them, but many.
I have to say, for those watching the program, Dave, who are salespeople, you saying probably gives them that little glimmer of hope,
Yeah, yeah.
other than no.
Okay. So let's talk about where the glimmer of hope is.
Talk
Okay.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it depends on your selling circumstances, your selling system, and your products and the customers. So if your product is a big ticket product, so for example, I think in the article I gave an example of woodworking equipment. I'm not talking about handsaws here, but big pieces of production equipment that spit out, 20 tabletops a minute, that kind of thing. Okay, those are $500,000, $1 million a piece. There's going to be a salesperson involved in that because the risk to the customer, keyword there, the risk to the customer of making a mistake is very high. And so to mitigate the risk, they want a relationship with a human being that they know and trust and feel is competent. So number one, if it's a big ticket item. Number two, if the purchase is big. So in other words, let's say you're an automotive supplier and you're a manufacturer of some component and you're buying a $2 part and putting it with other parts and but the sale is $1 million to Ford or GM or something like that. The $1 million sale, even though the part is by itself is small, the invoice and the sale itself, the purchase decision is large. Therefore, the larger the purchase decision, the more likely that the customer will want to have a relationship with with a live person. So we got a couple things there. Here's one more, and that is where the sales process is sophisticated and complicated. So, for example, I mean, here's an example of the other extreme. Amazon sells books over the internet. That's the simple thing. You see the book and you give them $10 or 15. Simple, simple, very simple sales system. However, let's go back to our woodworking equipment. We did a sales map for one of my clients selling that kind of stuff, and we identified 28 steps in the sales process. That's going to require a salesperson to work that thing through. So there's three places where I think the outside salesperson, at least in the foreseeable future, is still very very necessary, and that's big ticket items, big purchase items, and sophisticated sales processes. Now, if you don't have that, yeah, so.
Yeah.
It's honestly, I think your job is questionable, and like what's going to happen when one of your customers has an AI agent and gives it the project of finding and acquiring the best product for this application.
Then
Is that
the one selling needs to match that perfectly.
absolutely, absolutely. And if it's an AI agent making the call, or even a pretty sophisticated purchaser, they can do almost all of that without talking to a person. They don't need to talk to a person to do that. 20 years ago, a study was done on buyers in the industrial segment, and 70% of them, as a result of the survey, 70%, 70% said if they had a good catalog and a good inside salesperson, they would really rather not see an outside salesperson. That was 20 years ago. And, that was before the days of everything's on the web. They still said then, if I have a good catalog, I don't need a person. So imagine today, if I have a good website I can go to, what do I need a person for? And, that's a question. Ultimately, I think it boils down to that question on the part of the put yourself in the shoes of the customer and ask, what does he need me for? What does he need me for?
Dave, I'm a consumer, and what you described is exactly how I like to do business. I like to find it online. I'm a big
Hmm.
Amazon junkie, you might say, because it's so easy.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not a salesperson, but if there was someone on the younger side of the spectrum here who was in sales,
Hmm.
this is their career path.
Hmm.
Now they're watching this program going, did I make a big mistake? Unless I'm going to
Hmm.
sell $1 million woodworking equipment.
Yeah. Hmm.
What would you tell them? What can they do to adapt and find their way? Anything to share
Yeah.
there?
Yeah. Well, I would first make sure that I was constantly developing in the basic, what I call the competencies of a salesperson, creating relationships. That's a competency. You can always get better at it. Asking questions, making a presentation, the fundamental competencies. I would make sure I was continually improving in those. Then the question is, where is that am I going to be needed to do that? And I think you need to develop some competencies on the whole electronic commerce thing, however you define it. You need to be very conversant with your company's website. You need to be able to direct people. You need to be able to ask when you get into a conversation with a customer, even if it's just over the phone. You need to be very disciplined, very focused, much more focused. Even before, an outside salesman can just show up and kind of wing it. And you just, those days are done, man. If you got 20 minutes on the phone or on a Zoom call with a customer, you better have that thing ready. You better have an agenda. You better be organized. You better be on top of it. You better be practiced. You better be rehearsed. And so that's a whole set of skills that are new for a lot of salespeople. That whole thing of rehearsing, practicing, organizing, having an agenda, working it through with somebody on the phone or over Zoom. I mean, those that for a lot of salespeople, that's a new set of skills, and I would say that's where a lot of it is going to be in the near term. You know. So yeah, I would really sharpen up all those competencies. And again, I'm a guy who's trained tens of thousands of salespeople, and one of the observations that I've made is only 1 out of 20 salespeople has invested $25 of their own money on their own improvement. And so, and I believe that. And so, if you're one of the 19 of 20, honestly, your job is probably in jeopardy. Honestly,
So the toothy smile and the firm handshake days are numbered, but you mentioned a skill set to look at and to pursue that makes a
yeah,
lot of sense. So
yeah,
there's a
yeah.
solution.
Yeah, there is. And but when I say in the near term, I don't know long term. I think those three areas that I identified will be there long term. Long term being, 5 years or so,
Hmm.
but short term being maybe 2 to 3 years. So I think if you're into one of those significant areas that I talked about, I think you got at least a 5 year run. If you're not, honestly, I'd be thinking about where can I add value to my company? Where can I add value to my customers? And if the answer is, well, I don't know, then your customers don't know either, you know?
Sounds like
So
some soul searching needs to happen, perhaps, with some people.
honestly, Jeff, I think over the next couple of years will be a time of dramatic transformation in the world of outside sales, and I would warn and caution people, chief sales officers, whatever the title is, people who are making those decisions that you gotta look at this. Can't let it, you can't close your eyes to it. This thing is going to happen, and it has been, there's been a trend from outside to inside for 20 years, but it's now a snowball rolling down the hill. It's too late to stop it. It's growing more and more momentum as it goes. So I think you got to take a good, hard, objective look at the role of your outside sales force right now, right now, and the role of the inside. And do you have the communication technologies? Do you
Mhm.
have the internet capabilities that your customers want? What do they want from you and your salespeople? Like you can't assume that what they wanted 4 or 5 years ago was what they want today. Moving
Well,
too fast.
the world is changing quickly. What we're talking about today, if we did this in 1 year, it might be a somewhat different message, if not completely. But Dave, thank you for this. It's sobering words, but
Yeah,
honest, and it's
yeah.
something to really look at and think about in the world of sales.